from 4:30 p.m. at the Phillip Street Communities Precinct. So if you know anyone who's interested in being involved in our traineeship or apprenticeship program, make sure they're at that at the Phillip Street Community Precinct this afternoon. Of course, the Mount Larcombe Show, one of the biggest events in the Gladstone region, is on this weekend at the Mount Larcombe Showgrounds. We have the CQ Health and Sport and Recreation Expo at Phillip Street on Saturday the 21st of June as well, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m, and that's a free event for all ages. And then the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, thanks to the team at APL&G, Gladstone Ports Corporation and Council, will be hosting the free event again at the GPC Marina Parklands at the Stage, which is an amazing event, and I know councillors love attending that one as well. And we have the 2025 NAIDOC Ball and Awards Night on the 28th of May as well. And tickets are available now for Luminous, happening at the Tondoon Botanic Gardens on 17th to the 19th of July. So visit Council's website for more information to our famous award-winning Luminous event. Thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of the general meeting minutes for the 3rd of June. A councillor is attending. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Patrick, and seconded Councillor Cameron. No business arising out of those minutes. I assume we'll take those as true and correct. All in favour? And those online? Thank you. Carried. We have no deputations this morning, councillors, so we'll move directly into our officers' reports. And the first officers' report is G4.1, lease renewal, lease to Canoe Point Outriggers Club. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Community and Lifestyle, Kylie Lee, and welcome Bri to the table as well. Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Thank you, Rachel. Good morning. This is the 3rd general meeting in a row where we're bringing to you 3 leases for our community organisations. So it gives me a great amount of pleasure to be able to keep presenting these to you on a continuous basis. Over the past 12 months, we've been working very hard with community groups to progress through these leases, and we have about 9 remaining to go through the boardroom. So it's a great result to progress these leases as quickly as we are. So this morning, the first of the 3 is the lease to the Canoe Point Outriggers Club. This lease is a parcel on 54 Wyndham Avenue in Boyne Island. The lease was first entered into in 2004 and had a holdover period from 2019. I'm using a new term of years here, so 2019. So it's in a holdover status, which just means that all conditions within the lease are current and they're just currently rolling over. What we are proposing with this lease is a lease up to 10 years in tenure. The club preference is of 5 years, but it does, with a 10-year lease, give us some flexibility there. The group are looking forward to having the lease in place and to have a closer relationship with council so that they can remain in compliance. Welcome any questions you have on this particular lease.
Thank you, Kylie. Before we go to questions, the recommendation says 10 years and then the report says 5. So
if I can please propose
please
to include the word up to in the resolution, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Up to 10 years, lovely. Questions, councillors? Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, look, I notice we're moving all these things out to 10 years now. So if we had a new lease coming up with no history or no performance history, would they go out to 10 years or would you start with a smaller lease period?
I'll hand to Bri for this one. It'll be consistent with our land use policy.
Yep.
So our land transaction policy does allow for up to 10 years as standard, so that would be our first preference. But obviously when entering into a brand new lease with an organisation, if one were to become available, there'd be a lot of background done to ensure that they are appropriately resourced to take on a lease, and it's the best fit for council and community.
Okay, what sort of a lease period would you consider reasonable for a first lessee?
Could be up to 10 years, depending on the lessee and what their history was, where they're coming from, if they've had a previous lease arrangement or what we're looking at. We could, if it was, for example, a brand new organisation that we didn't have that much history or confidence about, could definitely look to do less, which would be probably in the vicinity of 2 or 5 years.
Okay, and so we're going to move to 10 years with most of these leases now. I suppose that bit of common sense there, where that runs it out, we don't have to revisit so often. And we don't go into arrears in our leases in the future.
Yeah, that is correct. 10 years will be our standard.
Yeah, thank you.
No further questions? No? Can I get a mover for the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Cameron, seconded Councillor Davis. Sorry, online. Councillor Churchill, was that a question, or you're happy to second as well? Okay, fantastic. All in favour? And that's carried as well. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to the next item, which is G4.2, lease renewal for lease to the Department of Education premises at Tranberg Street. Back to you, Kylie.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Cameron's question there, our community and partnerships team do take a lot of time to work with our community organisations to make sure that we are creating a lease that is fit for purpose for the community organisation, sporting organisation and council. So there is a lot of work done there with the community. That said, the next lease we have here is the lease to the Department of Education at Tranberg Street. This particular lease is to facilitate their marine science and aquatic practices program for their year 11 and 12 students, which is quite popular. The most recent lease in place was from 2012 to 2022, and again the lease was in a holding period, so same conditions just carrying over. The proposed lease renewal is again for 10 years, in line with Council's land transaction policy. So invite any questions on this lease.
Questions, councillors? Yeah, it is straightforward.
Happy to move.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Churchill. Seconder, Councillor Wagner. Before I put the motion, we are in a discussion with the department regarding the property next to the BMX club. Is that correct?
With the Department of Education.
Is that Department of Education that has a lease there on that block of land? CQ University was prepared to, or happy to hand that over to us. But I think there was an issue with the Department of Education.
So we need to work with the Department of Education to change the nature of the lease. It's currently education. We need to change it to sport and recreation, which is a process that our team is working through, Mr Mayor.
Oh, lovely.
So that's something else that we'll bring to you later
But this
on.
shows goodwill to the department, how we're prepared to sign another lease for them for 10 years as they're prepared to hand over a piece of land to us to use for a sporting precinct, which they have not used for educational purposes and have no intention of. No, fantastic. Great.
Thank you.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favour? Thank you, it's carried. G4.3 is lease renewable to Tenham Sands Surf Life Saving Club, and it's not a conflict that needs to be resolved by council, but I just want to mention that I'm the patron or vice patron of Wide Bay Capricorn Surf Life Saving for the next two items. Thank you. Over to you, Kylie.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Tranberg Street is a very popular space in Gladstone, so this lease is for the Tenham Sands Surf Club located at Tranberg Street in Gladstone, and this is really to house their surf boat rowing program. So the lease currently is from 2001 into 2021, again is in a holdover period, so we just are really progressing through those leases. The club has in the measures of success and challenges in the report you have in front of you, the club has outlined an expected revival of the surf boat rowing program, which is great, and the Tranberg Street premises will play a key role in that program. So again, councillors, welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions, councillors?
I'm happy to move
Councillor
that.
Patrick? Happy
No?
to move?
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
No questions. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. I'll put the motion. All in favour? And that's carried as well. Okay, 4.4, Sole Supplier Surf Life Saving, Queensland, Agnes Water and Tenham Sands Main Beaches. We got two general managers presenting this, the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes, and Kylie Lee as well. So I'll hand to you, Mark, first, I believe.
Musical chairs.
Thank you.
Morning, Mayor and Councillors. This item is for you to consider several aspects of our proposed sole supply with respect to Surf Life Saving Queensland and the services it provides at both Agnes Water and Tenham Sands Main Beach with respect to patrol services. So this report is of seeking endorsement that essentially Surf Life Saving Queensland is a sole supplier for the provision of those services, but also is looking for essentially expenditure approval for a 3-year contract. The team, through Kylie and Bri, have been essentially working through with Surf Life Saving Queensland with a number of different, options as to how we can look at providing that service for the community. And there is a proposed option as part of the report, which is option 5, and that's been costed at a cost of around about 1.399 million. So that is the proposal that is put forward to you. The team are probably able to answer questions with respect to how they've worked through each of those options for your consideration.
Thank you. So option 5 you're suggesting, is that what you're saying? The 446,000, is it?
Yes.
Okay. In the recommendation, it just says enter into a contract for a 3-year period for that amount. And as point 2, which is 1.399 million, but it doesn't actually say the option. So it is, you're talking about option 5?
Yes.
Yeah. I know the recommendation doesn't, I know the report does, but yeah, okay. So what does, as per the current service that we have, so we can go back a few years, we increased the service at Agnes Water significantly, and then I believe last year or a couple of years ago we also increased the service at Tannum. So does this new contract reduce the service at Agnes or Tannum, or increase the service at Agnes and reduce at Tannum? What can you explain to me?
Mr Mayor, can I hand over to Bri
Yes, please.
Jansen? Bri's done a lot of negotiation with Surf Life Saving Queensland on this particular contract, so I'll just hand over to Bri. We're just going to get an extra microphone if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Rach.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So a couple of years ago we did increase the service at Agnes Waters to provide coverage during the weeks of the winter months, and that was in respect to the number of tourists that we were actually seeing visit that area who weren't familiar with our conditions and who were quite happy to swim through during those winter months, as some of our locals may not be. So that change was made to the contract for the final year of our existing contract. Tannum Sands has remained the same, so there has been no changes to the Tannum Sands Surf Life Saving contract for a number of years. Option 5 does recommend to keep the existing service at Agnes Waters consistent, but to actually reduce the service at Tannum Sands from 2 lifeguards to 1 lifeguard. And that's been in response to Surf Life Saving Queensland analysing the data and how they're operating at other centres, and they actually feel that we're possibly over-servicing down at Tannum Sands for the numbers that we're seeing. So in consideration for the financial impacts that everyone is seeing that flows onto our community, they have actually recommended that we could potentially look to drop down to 1 Surf Life Saver at Tannum and still provide an adequate service.
Okay, so just so I get it right, so the service at Agnes will remain exactly the same as it has been for a number of years, even
That's
though I know
correct.
that was an increase on the previous years?
That is correct.
And based on advice from Surf Life Saving Queensland, still have the same months at Tannum, just have 1 Surf Life Saving officer,
Yes, that is correct.
in addition to the number of volunteers that they have there as well.
That's right. So it is important to recognise that at Tannum Sands, Surf Life Saving Queensland actually provide the coverage over the school holiday periods, Monday through till Saturday, whereas our local volunteer Surf Life Savers provide the service throughout the year on a Saturday afternoon and on a Sunday.
Okay.
Mr Mayor, if I can add also, it's really pleasing to see Agnes Water with a nippers program that is really starting to develop some momentum, and in time, hopefully, those nippers will progress to lifeguards to support the service at Agnes Water.
Okay, lovely. All right. That's a significant investment from our council on behalf of our community of 1.1 million, nearly $1.5 million, really basically $1.5 million. Which is, as I said before, I'm vice patron, so, obviously I'm a big supporter of this service, but when you look at core services for local government, this isn't a core service of local government, so it's certainly something we know is important, and that's why we see this recommendation here and why we've been supporting them for a number of years. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Cameron.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I noticed in the one of the attachments there that there is a accommodation charge there, it's a bit over $28,000. What sort of accommodation are we providing? I understand that the surf life-saving people provide staff and they're not local, so we've got to accommodate them. Can you tell me what sort of accommodation that is for $28,000 and for how many people?
Thank you, Councillor. So in Agnes Waters, our primary lifesaver has moved to the region and purchased their own property, so they don't require any accommodation. However, that lifeguard obviously can't work 7 days a week, so when we need to supplement him for his rostered days off when he goes on leave, and also during school holiday periods where we do have 2 surf lifesavers scheduled on, there is a unit that Surf Life Saving Queensland maintains throughout the year down at Agnes Water, and that is what that cost is towards.
$28,000 for one unit. Seems a bit high.
Okay.
Just wish that I could get that for mine.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't do negotiations on that. I'll just have to leave that up to Bri, I guess. But Councillor Wagner, question?
Yeah, sorry, my voice is croaky. I'm terribly sick, so I do apologise. It's a fabulous service. There's no doubt about that. But I'm just wondering, that cost, how much does that sort of relate to in man hours? Like that's getting to be quite a lot of money for what it is.
Thanks for the question, councillor. So that relates to total man hours in Agnes Waters of 4,270 annually and 476 hours annually at Turnham Sands.
Okay, thanks. 4,700 hour, yeah. No worries, thank you. And yeah, and I think that the accommodation cost there, that does seem like they're living it up. But anyway, thank you for answering the questions.
Councillor McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lot of information to digest in amongst this and the attachment as well. There is a very, very vast difference between the quantity of hours required for Agnes versus the Tannum location, and I appreciate the commentary a little bit around the Nippers program and stuff like that. Given that Tannum is providing a lot of volunteer service, is there a plan outside of waiting for 4-year-olds to grow up to be old enough to do it, for the volunteer service at Agnes to help supplement some of that to make that a little bit more sustainable in the short term? Well, for Agnes to have their own volunteer program that supports it in the same way that Tannum does, I guess is what I'm looking for. Is that something that we're going to have to continue to increase for a significant time, or is this something that is a layover, I guess? Is there a plan in place is the question I'm asking.
There's certainly not the level of volunteerism that we're seeing at Tannum, Councillor McClintock, so it will be some progression. We don't have capacity plans particularly for council to work with the community around improving their surf life-saving capability or capacity. However, if that's a direction from council, then that's something that we can consider if that's what you would like us to focus on.
I guess.
Anything else to add to that, Brian?
Probably the only additional comment is that, yes, as you will have heard previously, the Nippers is advancing. They have actually been recipient of a number of grants from council lately to support that program as well. There are a couple of senior surf lifesavers in Agnes who on occasion will assist with the paid surf lifesavers, but the capacity isn't there as yet for them to take on any sort of formal roster.
So I guess that leads to my second question, which is, should that happen, should a volunteer process become available, or we have a 10 volunteers move to the region in 6 months' time and want to create that thing, and it's the best thing in the world. Is there flexibility within this arrangement for that reduction in paid services, or are we committed to this for the next 3 years to having those 2 people all the time?
Within this contract, we'd be paying for that service for the next 3 years, but it's definitely something that we would look at and negotiate for the next contract that's upcoming in 3 years' time.
Okay.
And certainly, councillor, it is something that we discussed with Surf Life Saving Queensland this time in terms of the capacity of the existing volunteers. From all reports that I'm hearing, unless short of a miracle, we would not be in a position within this 3-year contract for them to have capacity to take on a volunteer service down there at this point in time.
Realise I'm being very optimistic. There's everyone's struggling for volunteers, and I do understand that. But I guess what we're looking for is an understanding from community that there is a really big investment in this, and it's a way that they could substantially impact the cost of living, and their costs to community would be to actually help contribute in these sort of ways. Would make a really tangible difference to that financial figure. Thank you.
And I guess the fact that Tannum Sands has a population more than 3 times of Agnes Water, it's easier for them to get volunteers. So as Agnes grows, the volunteers will grow too. But 3,000 population in Agnes versus over 10,000 Boyne Tannum, it's going to be a while before they have anywhere near the number of volunteers. But those 4-year-olds will grow up and they'll be amazing surf lifesavers, and that'll be help keep the beaches safe. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure if I can ask this, but with the funding, is there any equipment included in that, and do they get grants for their equipment, or is yeah?
So within that funding, there is an allowance for their equipment, so their fleet, and that's to account for their changeover period, their consumables, fuel, etc. So that is included within there. I do believe that there is a combination of grants and funding for their equipment.
Okay. No further questions? Tanya has a comment.
Mayor, if you'd just like some clarification in the resolution, I've added in that option 5, if you'd like to
Okay.
consider that, just in number 3 there.
Let me go back to what it says now. Authorise the chief to run into a contract for 3 years, maintaining the current service at Agnes Water and reducing. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, it says the figure in there, and that's fine as well, but I just didn't know. And it does say officer's recommendation number 3, but then it goes up and it's actually number 5 in the list of options, so I got a little bit confused, but I might be a bit jet lagged too. Excellent. That clarifies it. Do we need, because that's different to the officer's recommendation, does it need an amendment?
I don't believe that needs an amendment. It's just really
Clarifying?
words to the intent.
Okay, good, I'm happy with that. That's why we have Tanya. No further questions, councillors? Mover, please. Oh, thank you, Councillor Cameron and Councillor Patrick. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you online as well. And thank you, Kylie, and thank you, Bri. But you can stay, Mark, please, because G4.5 is the monthly financial report for the period ending the 31st of May 2025. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item is for you to consider the monthly financial statements through to the end of May, which takes us through to just under 92% of the financial year. So at this stage, we are tracking for an operating surplus of in and around 4.7 million.
Lovely.
And that's essentially as a result of some increased revenue streams that have come through. And you'll note that we have received a lot of those in terms of our income tax equivalents, but also into our interest revenue continuing to perform quite strongly. We've also received essentially all of our general purpose grants for the financial year in terms of that annual receipt we received from the federal government. Our capital revenue, we've pretty much are in line with forecast. So and at this stage, I would expect we might actually just exceed as some additional works are completed through June. So we're sitting at 34.7 as compared to our forecast of 35.3. But I would expect as we complete the financial year, there will be just a small movement in that. The significant part of that was our disaster recovery funding, and that work's been completed largely.
Can I ask a question on, you said our grants in terms of financial assistance grants, and I know we've discussed this many times, and there was an anomaly last year or maybe the year before about where the federal government paid it, well, you can argue whether it was state or the feds, but the feds paid it to the state very late, and then by the time we got it, it was the next financial year.
Yep.
So did we get 2 lots of financial assistance grants in this year, or 1?
Yep, so this only allows for the one.
And
so
are we expecting another one before the 30th of June?
And if there's another payment that comes through, that we'll have to adjust for that.
Would be lovely, but
So we did receive. So what happened was they actually paid most of the grant. So essentially 75% of that was received in July, and then so essentially on the 2nd or 3rd of July from memory. What has then happened is then the balance of that grant has been paid in very essentially
parts throughout the year.
Very small portions in the balance of the quarterly payments. To take us to that 9.8 million. So we received the lump sum up front. But we haven't received it twice.
No, but it is possible that we could receive it again before the 30th of June, because didn't we miss a whole year where we didn't get anything?
There was, a couple of years ago, that was that case,
Because of 1 or 2 days, but in a whole financial year, we didn't receive a single dollar in financial assistance grants. It's just an accounting issue. It's not like we're getting lots of new money, but okay.
But we have received our full allocation.
It'd be interesting because half the country would like to receive it in this financial year and the other half would like to receive it in the next financial year just because of their accounting standards. I just prefer that local governments have it in their banks rather than in the Commonwealth's bank.
From a cash flow perspective, for us, it probably doesn't make a lot of difference when we receive it.
No.
We're probably fortunate in that position. But from an accounting standards perspective, we're required to treat it as income when we receive it. So if we receive it in that financial year, that's essentially where it goes.
Yeah, but technically,
Yeah.
we would normally, in other words, expect to receive the 75% advance payment before the 1st of July this year, wouldn't we? No?
To me, we've received this year's allocation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
But we've received it, that was last year's allocation.
It was for the 24-25 financial year.
Mm.
In the budget papers was for the 24-25 financial year. So we received that amount. If there was a prepayment to occur, that would be which is the way they generally frame it.
Yeah, prepayment.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll wait and see what happens in the next few weeks.
Yes.
Sorry, Mark, as you were.
All good. With respect to our expenditure, we are tracking okay at this point with respect to forecast. So sitting there at 87% of forecast, but there is some larger numbers to come through, particularly in our consultants and contractors spend. So we're sitting at essentially 56% of our forecast with respect to consultants, and there's some certainly particularly with respect to some of our transformation programs. So I know we've done a lot of a rollout of our P2P, so our procure to pay process. That we've got a lot of people engaged helping our teams embed that. So we will essentially spend a lot of that money this in June, and the contractor spend is sitting there at 80%, so 23 million out of a $29 million forecast, and they're the reasons we're essentially under from a pro rata basis at the moment. With respect to our capital spend, still tracking quite strongly, and we're essentially at 85.8 million at the end of May, and tracking towards a forecast of 105 million, so will only be marginally under our budget of 107. That is a significant capital spend, even at the 85.8 million. That's a significant capital spend. Our outstanding rates still are performing quite strongly and are at 2.3% at the end of May, and remain below our previous 3 financial years. So that remains strong. Our financial ratios, so these are a combination of our statutory reported ratios, but essentially also our best practice ratios. So they are in alignment with budget at this point, and the only one in the longer term that does have that amber light is that longer term operating surplus ratio because it goes back over 5 years. So we did have a year where we essentially had an operating loss. So we do have a negative result over the 5 years, but that will come out in the wash, because as we've now, this will be our 3rd year with an operating surplus, which is pleased to see.
And that was during COVID?
Yes.
Where we had a 0% rate increase for that year?
Yeah, so that was in the 2021-2020 financial year. But happy to take questions.
Thanks. Councillor Holzheimer.
Morning, Mark. I noticed that it's not on the paper today, but around, I think it was the 13th of June, we had our auction for our properties for outstanding rates, and there was about 15 properties that were initially listed. I'm wondering how many went to auction as well?
No properties proceeded to auction.
Okay, that's a fantastic outcome.
All rates were paid.
Beautiful. That's a great outcome for community and also for council. So thank you. That was my only question.
Lovely. Councillor Churchill, then Councillor McClintock.
Thanks very much for that, Mayor Matt. Just 2 questions. Firstly, you made mention of the Capital Works project. And look, this report is always absolutely terrific. It's so informative. I hope people take the time to understand what all the various messages are. But to you, Mark, it's now the 17th of June. How close are we likely to achieve our forecast Capital Works project by the end of the financial year? And I've got another question on page 22. But how close are we going to get, Mark, with the Capital Works?
I'll I'll defer to Mark Francis, our General Manager of Asset and Environment. He's here to answer that question for you.
Morning, Councillor Churchill. Good morning, other councillors and Mayor.
Yeah, good morning.
In terms of the infrastructure programme, so we expect of the 107 million approved budget, 96 million of that was the infrastructure forecast. We expect to spend about 89 million this year against the budget of 96 on the infrastructure programme. So that's again, a significant achievement given the market. The numbers this month are complicated a little bit by what Mark mentioned in P2P, that there was, the Procure to Pay programme, where there was a delay in some of our invoicing. So we will expect June to be quite a big month for spending.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's absolutely significant in light of what we've had from, I suppose, post-COVID and the catch-up, which is terrific. Are any of the projects being delayed, or the capital works project, which are funding that have to be committed to by the end of the financial year, or are we in compliance with all the funding partners?
We work very hard with our funding partners to do that. It's sometimes very frustrating that projects don't necessarily follow a July to June programme, given what can happen during a project, and the fact that there's a hard deadline on some of our projects. TIDS, for example, does place quite a lot of production pressure on us to do that. We are working diligently to do that. We're on forecast to claim 100% of TIDS again. We've never missed that in the history of receiving that allocation. The other funds we've developed through Mark's team and Rowana specifically, along with our project managers, a really good relationship with our funding partners. So when we do come across what's unexpected, we're able to have constructive discussions.
Yeah, no, terrific. Thank you, Mark. Well done to everybody involved. My other question is on page 22 of the report. I've raised it a few times in the past in relation to our vacancy rate. And for a period of time, and I don't want to focus on the past, but for a period of time, we were at 12%, 14%. I think we got up to about 15% at one particular stage because it's a competitive market. But I noticed in your comment there, Mark, the average vacancy rate year to date is only 7%. So in brief, what do you put this down to? Because we've literally cut that in half from perhaps 18 months ago, 2 years ago.
I think we might be confusing two numbers there. I think we're probably confusing turnover rate as opposed to vacancy rate. I don't think we've ever had vacancy rate in the double digits. No, we've certainly had it as high as 8 and 9% previously. But certainly vacancy rate is continuing on a downward trend, which is pleasing in terms of continuity of our workforce. But it also means that in terms of certainty of how we provide that service, that's we're getting those good outcomes for our community. So the vacancy rate is essentially meaning when a position is fully funded for that year. There might be times when it becomes either people leave the business. Essentially we're not budgeting on that because we've got people that'll fill in from other spaces. So overall, we generally cover those. We've got a lot of process with respect to hire duties and secondment that enable us to try to fill those vacancies as and when they arise. But I think it's a combination of essentially being the workforce, our environment, the current environment certainly the council can provide, and as a employer, having a good reputation out there in the community, I think is helping in that space as well. So I'm not sure whether Lisa wants to add anything as CEO.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill, for the question. Just to refer to the data that Mark's referring to, we also have a 12-month rolling turnover rate, which is around, I think it's around 10%. I'm just looking at Ali. A little bit lower, but it has been steadily coming down as well, and that's the rate I think you're referring to that was up around the 15% and higher previously, but we have been seeing a consistent downward trend. Interestingly, I attend all of our corporate inductions, and we had one yesterday, and it was a smaller group. I think we had about 7 people in the room, and 2 of those people were what I call boomerangs, but people who have worked here previously and have come back. And it's always really interesting for me, always ask the question of why people chose to work at Gladstone Regional Council, and there's a fair bit of passion, and the people are hearing about our culture and the work that we're doing and the type of place we want to have here for the people who work here. And we also have, you know, a most fabulous community, and people are connected to that. So I think there's a combination of things that we're working on, but it is really interesting. It would be rare to go to an induction these days where there's not at least one person who may have worked here before. So I think that's some good feedback about the continuous improvement that we're making. But it's a bit like baking a cake. There's lots of ingredients that go into those sorts of figures, and some are within our control and some aren't. But I'd like to think that we're very deliberately making efforts to make this the sort of place people really do want to come and work at, because we're doing great things for our community.
Yeah, no, lovely to hear that. Thanks very much as an employer of choice, because I did do some little research just checking on other local governments of similar size, and I think their average vacancy rate is higher than ours. But I apologise for any misunderstanding with the turnover rate or vacancy rate compared to, but I have a greater understanding. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I've got you there, Mark and Mark, the Lowmead ceiling upgrade there has obviously a significant year-to-date expense versus the revenue or the grants associated with that. Is that something? Is that the one that we had an issue with the washout during the storm of the bypass road bridge thing?
There's a number of
costing.
There's a couple of projects on Lowmead. So the reconstruction of the Granite Creek Bridge is separate to the ceiling. The washout that occurred, we are confident that we'll get the bridge built over the next 3 to 4 months. So that's good news. Some of the work that's underway right now is proving very encouraging. We have, just calling back to Councillor Churchill's point, Mark's team has been very active in talking to the funders there in terms of QRA. We're keeping them abreast of the situation, and the funding's not at risk, and we're able to complete that work. The Lowmead Road, the significant length of that, which has been sealed, is a separate project funded through a separate federal grant.
Great. And we're, I was just curious whether that difference was because of an expense that we were looking to recover somewhere else. No, that's okay. Just a little bit of further clarification on the capital revenue you were speaking about before, Mark. The budget of 50 versus the forecast of 35. Is that the difference between that realisation of the financial grant?
The timing of some of those works. So when we just talked about the issue with Granite Creek Bridge, for instance, with some of those works now going into the following financial year. That money's then, whilst we had originally expected that to be finished, but it'll now be in 25, 26. So that's slipped across, and there's also a number of other projects where there's been some movement within those.
Great. No, that makes sense. I was just clarifying that number was specifically around that. That's great. Look, there's a couple other things in there that we've spoken about previously, and I know I've got some follow-up on. Outside of that, it all looks really, really good. I was really happy to see the forecast line is sitting. We can actually get our forecast right retrospectively on that graph now. You've moved the orange line down onto the top of the green bars. Very fantastic. It made me very happy to see that. But no, thank you very much. It's looking really good. Appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No, there's a recommendation from the officers that we adopt the financial statements to the officers' report 2024-25 to date, 31st of May. Moved Councillor McClintock, seconded Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. Righto, we have, thank you, Mark Francis. We still have a couple more for Mark Holmes. 4.6 and 4.7 are both repeal of a couple of policies that are outdated, but we'll start with the first one, which is a repeal of the single-use plastics policy. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as part of our policy review, we're working through a number of policies and working out whether they're currently fit for purpose, or whether we need to review a review of those. This is one of those policies when we've looked at, realised that it's now actually covered by numerous other pieces of legislation, both state and federal. At the time, Council in 2018 adopted a single-use plastics policy, and at the time there wasn't that legislation in those other spheres. So we think we're achieving those environmental outcomes now through other means, and therefore it's recommended that this policy can be repealed.
Thanks, Mark. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a couple of our hands up online, that this came about from a student at St Francis State School.
Yes.
That asked us to adopt this policy, and now his policy is statewide legislation. So, congratulations, young fella.
And he's now a grade 12 student. Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes.
Was it? There you
It was
go.
Sid,
Oh,
yeah.
there you go. Oh, and he was also our award winner of our Australia Day Awards as well. I've got a couple online. Councillor Wagner, then Councillor Churchill.
Oh, I think Councillor Churchill was first, but I just wanted to say, yes, thank you. Like, we had so many policies. It's great that these are being reviewed, and and I'm happy to move or second this one. Great outcome, and great to see us getting through these because there's so many of them.
Thank you. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, no, ladies first, Michelle. I'm really happy to second this motion, but I also, and you made reference to it there, Mayor Matt, is that having been part of implementing the policy back in 2017 or 2018, appropriately now that we've got a nationwide approach to this, I wonder if there's an opportunity that we might be able to communicate with that young student in some way, shape or form to let them know that what they created from a national perspective, and also explain. I wouldn't like to think that student who was the advocate, the driver, the ambassador to create change might misinterpret that we're throwing the policy out. Maybe a courtesy call or a nice letter from yourself might be to explain that, but that's just an idea. But I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you. I also have a mover in Councillor Wagner, a second, and Councillor Churchill. And I'm very happy to write that letter, aren't I, Shay?
Sorry, Shay.
And I'll sign that letter later today, and we'll send it off to Sid, because he's very easy for us to find. As I said, he won an Australia Day award as well. Councillor Patrick, did you have a further comment?
No, just that I was personally involved with helping that young student advocate for those changes. So, yeah, thanks.
Did you want a letter as well, Councillor Patrick?
No, I'm fine.
Well, well done.
Thank you. You'll be able to get his address for us then. Any further? Perfect. Any further comments or questions from the left side of the table? You're very alone over there, I noticed today. No? Okay, well, it's moved and seconded. Councillor Wagner, Councillor Churchill, all in favour? The motion is carried, and we'll write to Sid. The next one is a very similar result, really. 4.7, repeal of water standpipe policy. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item looks at recommending the repeal of our water standpipe policy. This has essentially been converted into a corporate standard, and essentially is how we actually outwork essentially our operations of our standpipes across the region. So we do have terms and conditions for hire of our fixed and mobile standpipes at our various points across the region, and at the time this was essentially dictated through council policy. That's now been essentially converted and is essentially being outworked through those terms and conditions each and every time that our customers get to utilise our standpipe. So that's therefore probably recommended that we repeal the policy at this point.
Perfect. I suppose it's not really related, but I have a question I can answer later. The water usage at 1770 SES grounds, that's not a standpipe though, is it? It's just people just help themselves to the water there.
I'll let Mark talk to it, but I believe at the time people have been accessing a facility that wasn't a standpipe. We are looking at putting a standpipe in that'll have a paid interface to recover that cost.
Yeah. Okay, is that what Mark said? Oh, very good, because the residents of Agnes Water 1770 are paying for the water for that, for tourists. So we love very much visiting our region, but they should be paying for the water that they're taking and filling up all their pods.
Should be installed in the next 3 to 4 months.
Perfect, 3 to 4 months. Love that. This is a great repeal of a policy that's no longer necessary then. Any questions, councillors? No. Can I get a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Cameron and Councillor Davis. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. And thank you, Mark and the Funky Bunch. Righto. Councillor reports. Do we have any councillor reports? I don't see there's any written, verbal councillor reports. Councillor Patrick, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a really busy couple of weeks since our last general meeting. Just a few things I wanted to highlight was the Pride Festival, which was held. That was a diverse long weekend celebration with inclusive events held across our region. It was a great celebration, and I just really wanted to highlight that. I also wanted to really highlight the Apprentice and Trainees Queensland graduation ceremony. So we had 10 students graduate. For the first time, they were holding a Certificate 1 in engineering, which was fantastic. So we need really great engineers within our region. So just really wanted to congratulate those students and the great work that Apprentice and Trainees Queensland are doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further councillor reports? Nothing online? No? Excellent. There's no further council reports, there's no urgent business, no notices of motion and no confidential items. Declare the meeting closed at 9:47 a.m. Thank you for your attendance.